This is my cat Minner being a goof.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is John Decker, and I think I'm going to make this a weekend project. So weekend projects with John. I actually have in front of me the parts that I need for making a kind of fancy cat scratch post. And if you're thinking to yourself, gosh, this feels really like jumping the shark from doing the workshop stuff into this, I just want to be clear, this channel is just the projects I do. A while back, I made a cat scratch post out of an old piece of fence post that I cut down being about the height of my hip, primarily because one of my cats regularly, well, I am wearing jeans anyways, and one of my cats will regularly reach up and claw into my jeans, and I figured the highest she can reach is my hip. And so what I wanted to make was a cat scratch post that would go at least that high. I had a few design limitations though. Number one, every cat scratch post I looked up on the internet was the cardboard tube wrapped in cord and usually in a beige color or a white color, and it didn't match our decor at all. So I decided to go kind of a little heavier duty under the assumption that it could be something that in the future, instead of replacing the entire cat scratch post because the cardboard got worn out, I would just have to replace the cord. One of the random pieces of wood that during the pandemic I had grabbed off of Facebook Marketplace, or no, I grabbed it off of Craigslist. Some old lady was getting rid of her old fence, and I've used the parts from that fence for a lot of different things out in the garden, but this post was remaining. It's partially round, it's kind of got that flat end on it, and I went ahead and sanded it down. And I think because of the color of it, I believe I used a blowtorch to torch it and just kind of seal it up and clean it up and make sure there was no bugs on it. And I went ahead and took the whole thing apart so I could show you guys how I put it together. And so I'll tell you right now, one of the neatest things I think that I came up with for this was, how do I make it match our decor? And our decor for our house has a lot of like 1910s, 1920s vibes, and maybe even a little bit earlier than that, some Victorian kind of vibes. And so one of the things I went ahead and did was try to figure out what can I use for the legs, because for the post to be stable, especially considering how heavy it is, and if you can kind of see it there, it's pretty tall, it needed to be sitting on its own base on the ground, but it also needed to be supported at least about a foot out in order to get that angle that would be necessary for structural stability. And so what I ended up doing is hopping on Amazon and buying, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's basically just a potted plant hanger. I made sure that I bought 2 sets, so there are 4 of them. And then I went ahead and screwed it to the post in order to keep the post upright. Now, the reason I took it off just now before this video is because it doesn't sit 100% level. And I think the reason for that is when I put it together the last time, I put it together in the house. In our house is an old farmhouse. It does not have flat floors. We'll eventually get to that point, but it currently has a lot of like wavy, wobbly little, wood floor situation going on. And the barn that I'm currently working in, the workshop, if you will, also doesn't have a flat floor. It's made out of like 1x8 and 1x6 and 1x10 pine planks as the floor. And so there's no place anywhere in our property that we have a perfectly flat surface except for maybe like the dining room table. This time around, when I'm putting this together, I'm going to do so on this old coffee table. One of the things that has transpired since I built this, which I built this originally, I think it was about a year ago at this point, one of the things that has transpired is we've really started adopting or finding copper bits. And by copper bits, I mean like going on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and sourcing copper decor, because my wife really likes the mixed metals look. So copper and bronze and brass and everything kind of mixed together. I thought it'd be nice to kind of fit in some of the copper that we've also had going on for the rest of the house. And the way that I think I'm going to be able to do that is this scrap piece of flashing that I have. It's just a really thin piece of copper material. But I think what I can do is cut this down into a strip, use it as a winding somewhere on to kind of give it an extra bit of something to match the decor. Now, clearly, I'm not going to be able to affix this. I don't have tacks or anything like that I can use, which is what I would prefer, I think, to have those little brass tacks. I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler, or straight edge, if you will, and its width to create strips of that copper and make a banding that looks about like this, right up to that edge, and make a pencil line on there. Again, I don't have a whole lot of this to work with, and I hope she likes it. To be honest, I didn't ask. You can kind of see there's a line on there. I don't know if that's going to show up on video. Nice. Nicely done. By the way, if you've never worked with this stuff before, I think you can get like copper tape. I didn't want to buy anything. These are just all the pieces I already had. But I will put anything that I use, like the snips or any of this stuff, if I can find an Amazon link for it, I will put an affiliate link into the description. Basically make no money off of those, but it's worth putting up, I guess, if you guys want to figure out where to find this stuff. And if I do this right, it should hold and look okay. Okay, that's just a bottom line. Should be able to line up with that. And that'll, by the way, if you are curious, I didn't have a long enough extension cord for this side. All the outlets are used up for the moment. So I am using my Ryobi battery power thing to power the glue gun. So it's wireless, sort of. All right. Okay. Oh no, I'm making a mess. It is impossible for me to work with glue gun glue without making a mess, especially in the cold. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and squish that in. I know there's the reason I'm using glue gun glue instead of like other kinds of glue that might feel a little bit more professional or whatever is because A, it's cat scratch post, who cares? And B, I know that I can tear this off if I mess up. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it kind of turned out okay. It looks pretty neat. There we go. That is the copper added to the post. Can't see the top one. All right, that's the copper added to the post. And it's just, trying to make it a little bit subtle. I'll get the little, hairs off of it. But now the next part is putting on the line. I have this, I think it's called Bissell line. I'm not really sure what it's called actually. I had 2 windings of it, and I was saving one for doing this part of the project, like the redo, after they've scratched it a little bit, but I can't find that. So as I do this, I'm going to be trying to clean off some of the hairs on the fiber here and show you the process for putting it on the post itself. And I'll bring in the camera a little bit closer so that you can see that, and I'll just talk over it. I need to clean up this rope, and this is the easy side of it, but basically you see all these little hairs. As we get to the middle where the cats have actually been scratching on it, it gets really rough. And since I can't find the other coil, I have to clean this one up. The only way that I know to do that is with fire. All right, so it's pretty simple. Just run it over there. The little flakes on it, it's fine. Okay, so while I was burning off all the excess like fuzz, I came across a section where they have trimmed or they've cut through or clawed through the rope itself and it's starting to fray apart. Now, to be honest, I have no idea how my wife is going to react to the fact that I'm causing the rope to look like slightly burned, but I do need to correct this issue. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I found my little scissors, by the way. Hope these are still sharp. All right, nice. And take out that section that's really starting to fall apart. So I don't know if this is a knot that everybody knows how to do or not. But this is simple enough. So you guys all know how to like tie a single loop around to make your knot, right? Like that's a normal thing. Everybody knows how to do that. That's like tying your shoe. So did you know that if you do that, so I've got this rope here and it's fuzzy end. I'm pointing it, think of this as like the rope continues on. So I'm pointing the broken end down the end that continues on, and I'm doing that in the other direction as well. So they line up like that. So I'm going to just go ahead and take one side, just this random end, and tie a knot by basically tying that same knot I mentioned earlier, that half hitch, around the end that continues on. But instead of just stopping with one half hitch, I'm going to go ahead and run it through like 3 or 4 times. So that what that looks like then is you go, I'm going to try to make sure I got enough rope to work with here. You go up, and so then your half hitch goes through like that, and you cinch it up a little bit, and then without closing the loop, you run another half hitch, basically just looping around one more time, going around both of those lines. And I think 3 is probably the minimum you can do this with, but 3 will do for now because of the size of this rope. And then holding on to the end that you just were passing through and the end that continues on, just hold on to both of those and kind of work out the other side. And now if you do the pull on the rope that was the origin of that, basically, there's different ways to do this, but basically you're going to lose a little bit of rope doing it, but it's fine. So I'm basically just cinching that rope down so that the tightness of that loop that we just made locks it in place. So then you end up with one kind of continuous wrap, and then it goes through the loop once, and it's pretty tight. We're just going to leave it as is. Make sure it's nice and tight on this leading edge, and you should have now a rope, the knot rather should now pass, like it should allow the other rope to slide in and out. So it's basically just sliding up and down on that. And you're going to want to slide it so that you've got enough rope to do this. The same thing you just did there, you're going to do it on the other side. It doesn't matter how far down you go. It can be as loose as you want. Going all the way down, I'm going to use my 2 fingers here to make a loop. And then again, do like a half hitch with 3 lines or 3 loops essentially running through. So 1, it's a tough rope to work with for this because it's real stiff. 2, and then 3. And again, kind of just cinch those loops up until they tighten on the piece that you've left over. Little tag there. I'm just tightening it down. Okay. Nice and tight. All right, cool. So now what you're left with is 2 pieces of rope, one that slides there and one that slides here. And so if you pull the leading edge or the edge that kind of continues on both sides, you can tie them, you can cinch them together so they become one knot and they're holding together on this. And then you can pull it real nice and tight and it becomes one knot essentially. If you had a question about what that would look like when it was done, you can see the char on some of the cord, and I think the likelihood is low that I'll be able to clean that off. So this is going to look that way. This section, which has the big splits in it, I think of as the back of this cat scratcher. It's the side that we kind of face towards the wall. And so what I'm going to show you today is the way to wrap the cord on this. And I want to be really clear, you're going to hop on the internet and you're going to find other ways of wrapping the cord for cat scratching posts. I don't know exactly how everybody does theirs normally, but this is how I do it. And I'm just going to do it this way because it's how I know how to do it. So you start with your knot up at the top, and then you bring your line down as for the length of what you want the potential full wrap to be. So like down to about there or so. And then you double up the length of the line. So bring the line back up to the top, right? Like about there. And that's going to represent the length of the wrapping that we're going to do. Okay. And so I know that's there. It doesn't have to be held in place or anything like that, but I know that's the length that it can be. You could use a clamp or a zip tie or something like that if you wanted to go that direction. But I just happen to know that this position is what matters most right now. So bringing that into frame, or geez, what am I stuck on? Bringing that into focus a little bit here. This is what we're working with. So now we've got the original tag line, the original like end essentially, and then that goes off. And then you've got this other end up here. That's the start point for the looping. And so what we're going to do without losing that pinch point there with your finger is we're going to lift up the line and we're going to wrap it all the way around, one full wrap till it comes back to that point. And now the first wrap that you've just done, you're going to overlap that first tag, the end, if you will, and overlap that. And you're going to go under that first run that you did, that first corner or loop or whatever. I'm not sure if I'm describing this well. We're kind of held tension on it a little bit there until we get this first one done. And so once it's done, you can kind of tighten this up just by pulling it, but you're basically just pulling against that. So once you get that done, you're going to do it again and you're going to hold tension. Now, if you do this right, you're now holding tension and it doesn't pull free because it's pulling against itself. So now we're going to run that tension. I'm holding tension with my thumb here, and I'm looping or I'm rolling the post with my other hand. And so now we're going to just roll this over, come back over to the other side. We're going to overlap that line one more time, just like that, and then just do that all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and time lapse this so you can kind of see it going, because this is going to be a long wrap. We're going to go all the way down to the end here, but just know that at this point, if we get down to the end and this is too long, this tag end, this loop that we created, it's okay. That's fine. We'll be able to correct for it.
I was going to play montage music here, but I couldn't find anything I liked. So I've got a quick message. First off, winding this is a big giant pain in the butt. But in this family, I'm the one that does stuff like this to show those who are going to receive it that I love them. Whether it's a project that I'm making for my wife, who I very much love, she's my best friend ever, or whether it's a project that I'm making for our cats. A pet is something that I never really appreciated much when I was younger, and having them as an adult, especially these cats, is just wonderful.
You end up taking your tail end here of the line you just ran, and you tuck it into that hole or that loop that you created at the very, very beginning of the process. Sorry, this is hard to do while holding tension with my left thumb. So kind of good to have an extra set of hands at this point if you get this point. I will be really fair. This is, well, how do I say this? This wrapping process will drive you to insanity. Anyways, I'm going to leave this out like this. Just keep tension on it here. And now with your other hand going up to the top of wherever you started your wrapping, you're going to find that original tag that you had looped around to, keep tension on it. Okay, so if you can imagine as you're looking at this, that this tail here goes all the way down and around the tail at the other end now, and then it goes all the way back up and it hits this first loop, if you will. So what we're going to do, I don't know if you can see this in camera, we're going to pull on the original first string, like the very end. And if we pull on it tight enough, and again, because of how much tension there is in this, it might be difficult to do, but you're basically going to pull on this until you see the loop at the end move. And this is going to be a hard one, so I'm going to end up having to let go of that for just a second. Well, I'm hoping I can do this. All right, holding on to that one down there, and I'm really yanking on this with my right, oops, it's hard to see there. Really going to yank on this with my right hand because I'm right-handed. And that's going to be tough to do. Hang on. Let's see if I can do that from here. Oh, might have tightened it up a little bit too much with the tension here. Sorry about the noise it's making. It's rocking on one of those knots, which I'll explain in just a second. Oh, I'm gonna have to get a tool. All right, hang on. Taking a piece of needle nose pliers and sort of wrapping it around here. You could probably do this with a piece of wood if you had a piece of wood with you that was the right size for it. Well, let's see if this gives me enough to pull on. Just making a handle out of that pair of pliers. There it goes. I don't know if you saw that, but it just tucked in at the very bottom here. So this is your tail. It's going in to that loop, and now it's tucking in under the tension of all of those lines. Okay, so once you've got it in there, if you can get your tension going again and slide that up. Oh, I can do that with the pliers, man. That is super tight. That's good. It means it'll last longer. All right, so to my handle, get some tension on it. Yeah, and if you pull up hard enough, you can pull that knot all the way in. Now, this kind of line is a little tough to work with for me personally because it's a natural line, so it's really it's got a lot of texture in it, which means it's got a lot of friction in it. So that's going to be enough to hold that. I don't mind if there's a tail there. Maybe the cats will like it. This is in the back. At the very end, though, where we started, we still have this end that's kind of like pulled out now. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie it off, and I'm going back underneath that first loop there because I need to keep that one tight, essentially. So now by going back underneath it and pulling against it, you're tightening it down again into that space underneath the lines. So that tension that you've created essentially is still there. Now this end's all frayed. I should have tied a knot in it to begin with, but that's okay. For the purposes of today's project, I'm going to go ahead and take the pliers and I'm going to tuck that frayed end down underneath the lines so it visually looks complete. All right. There we go. Now the cats never get up that high. They usually go to about where my left hand is. So that should be okay. Now, before I go to a different view, I just want to apologize for the bouncing. Currently, I'm using a selfie stick drilled into a block of wood as my tripod. It gets a little bouncy. There were a couple spots where the line was broken from their clawing. And so when I was cleaning up the line, I went ahead and tied those off. And for now, because these are all frayed, I'm going to go ahead and burn those down. The coloration is growing on me. I hope my wife likes it. I don't know what this stuff's made out of, but it smells a little bit like lumber. Okay. Well, now my hands are all black. That's fun. All right. Anyways, so that's how that line goes on, and that's basically it. Now, I ended up with 2 of these on the front. We'll see how, see how she likes it. So let's go ahead and get these on and see how it works. Now, thankfully, because this is a flat surface, the post is sitting up no problem. If you're trying to do this for the first time, it's basically the best thing is to have somebody hold on to the top of this, make sure it doesn't move, and then figure out where your bracket sits with the most contact to the ground, essentially. For me, I didn't want 2 points of contact, even though that's how this would essentially look. I wanted just the 1 foot point. And so that's how I put these together last time. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. I've got 3 points here that are really solid and one that's just a little bit high. Turn that around. See if it's high on the other side. Now that they're all put together, it's easier to see. Yeah, that one's a little bit high. Give me a second. I've got a solution. You're not gonna like it. All right. Sweet. All right, so here's the final product. There it is. There's my catch scratch post. Thanks for joining me on another weekend project with John Decker. This is the day after Christmas, and I'm out in a freezing cold bar. If you like this kind of stuff, please like and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow, and maybe eventually that'll mean I don't have a freezing cold barn. That sounded ominous. What I mean by that is maybe I'll have enough time to actually install the heater in this place.
Just so happened that when I got back into the house and set it up, my cat Minner came over right away, gave it a sniff, and she loves it.